And so I was very pleased to help found the Jewish Coach Association, and now to see it under Matt Elkins and Scott Garza, Jason Belzer, really doing a nice job.
Reminder that the Auburn locker room is open and that the student-athlete breakouts are still going on. We're going to take our next question in the center of the room.
Hey, Coach. Daryl Dapprich, Auburn Daily. I had an opportunity to speak to you preseason and talk about the non-conference schedule that you had put together, and did you feel like that was because of the team that you had coming back? Looking back on it now, a lot of those games that you scheduled kind of draw the connection to how that paid off to get you to where you are right now in the Final Four.
Will do. I just want to finish your question. I wear this all the time, and that's this dog tag to bring the hostages home. I don't always wear it outside because I want it close to my heart, but this is another opportunity to remind the world that there are Americans. Edon Alexander is still held hostage, and we're praying that any day now he might get released. And just a reminder that while we're all celebrating this incredible championship here in San Antonio, there's tremendous suffering going on in the Middle East, and we pray for peace and the hostages to come home. And if the hostages are released, the death and the dying will stop. I want to give my assistant, Mike Burgermaster, credit for putting our schedule together. Yes, we did look at a group of seniors and recognize that we got a chance to have a pretty good team. And so let's just schedule up. I think the other thing is that the metrics with Quad 1 opportunities was something that we looked at. If you remember a year ago, we had a really, really good season, but we didn't have that many Quad 1 wins. Some really great programs that we played in the non-conference didn't have great years, and it actually hurt our seeding a year ago. So we just said, we're just not going to do that again. We're going to play as tough a schedule as we possibly can. The thing that you risk is that you're not going to be successful, and then the kids lose confidence in themselves and in what we do. But of course, this year, that wasn't the case. And I just think a couple things on it. Number one, I want to thank Kelvin Sampson for being willing to play us and think that Auburn coming to Houston would be a good thing to help his team get prepared for the season. And the other one I would like to thank also would be Matt Painter at Purdue. He just got done playing for a national championship, and yet he was willing to bring his Purdue Boilermakers down to Birmingham to start a neutral, because we're going back up to Indiana next year. So in other words, for Kelvin Sampson and for Matt Painter to think that a game against Auburn was going to be something that would help them tells me that we've got our program where I dreamed we'd get our program.
Next question is just to the left of the aisle.
Bruce, Nathan King, Auburn Undercover. You used the word trust a lot. You have with this team in particular. Chad was just talking about how much he likes the fact that he can stand up on the bench and call things out during a game, that he can call things out during practice. How valuable is having that mindset throughout the team, especially this time of year where every possession counts and you guys are trying to win a championship?
Okay. Which Chad? Trust is important, and if you, in coaching and in teaching, even in parenting, if you are able to earn the trust of these younger people, and particularly in athletics, they will run through a wall for you. If you break that trust, if you're not honest with them, doesn't mean you're right. It's not about being right or wrong. It's about having them trust that you have their best interests at heart, that you're going to mentor them, that you're going to teach them, that you're going to hold them accountable. And one way you also trust them is you let them be themselves. You don't try to change their personalities. Not everybody has to be molded in the same way. And if some people misunderstand that's their problem. So we do let Chad Baker-Mazara be himself. And as a result, it has an opportunity to bring out the best in him sometimes, as a player. The other thing is, players have got to make sacrifices. If you're going to be part of a team, you've got to be accountable to the other guys on a team. You got to share the basketball. Some nights it's going to be your night, some nights not. And when it's not, you got to trust the process. You got to trust your teammates. And I can't tell you how many times all season long we would look to the guy to your right, look to the guy to the left. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be here, or we would not have won that game. So you begin to rely on each other, which then helps build the trust.
Same area of the room, Chuck.
Coach Chuck Culpepper from the Washington Post. If you could think back to what you were like as a kid in Massachusetts and what it would have meant to you, how it would have mattered to turn on the TV and see 3 Jewish head coaches in a Final Four.
Well, I would have thought that it would have been Larry Brown, Hubie Brown, and if they had another brother, that Brown, right? Or not everybody knows that Guy Lewis at Houston was Jewish. You know, it wasn't something that got a lot of attention back in the day, I don't think. And there have been others. I mean, I think as a young Jewish boy growing up in Boston, I would have been proud. But I also think back then it would have been a surprise to some of my peers that weren't Jewish. They may have been like, there's no way that would be the case, because obviously we're not athletic enough, and that's not the stereotype. But there is a stereotype about teaching. You know, Jesus was a rabbi, and what is the definition of a rabbi? It's a teacher, and so that's part of my heritage. My Hebrew name is Mordechai, and if you know the story of Purim, Mordechai, he taught his niece, Queen Esther, he poured into her that if she did not reach out to the king somehow, Haman was going to have his way, and there would have been another Holocaust and a genocide of the Jewish people. And so silence is complicity in many, many ways, you know, for me and obviously what I stand for. And I think that's something that I'm proud of as a Jewish man.
In the center of the room.
Bruce, I want to ask about Denver. You get him out of this portal at FIU. He comes in as a scorer. 2 years in, he becomes one of your better perimeter defenders. To you, what has made him so good defensively?
Man, I mean, Denver was a bucket getter. He was a leading scorer in Conference USA. He's still a bucket getter. But he also recognized that the level of athlete, the level of speed and quickness, I mean, 2 years ago, he couldn't even dream of guarding Walter Clayton. All right, now he's going to give it a go. And like few, he's got a shot to be able to guard him with some help. And so Denver recognized that he had to work on his lower body, he had to work on his core. He had to make it a priority. So he got in the weight room, he got in the slide boards, he got stronger. You know, he was already blessed. He was blessed with a pretty good bucket. I always tell those guys that can sit down and get a nice big bucket. There's power in them, their legs, and Denver's developed some power there. But I think as a result of what he's done, he's made himself an incredibly valuable player. Coach Golden talked about him yesterday being one of the more underrated players in the tournament. And, Denver's going to play a lot of professional basketball in his career because he can get buckets, which he always was able to do, and now he can guard anybody.
Up front to the right.
Hey, Coach, Aaron Bracey from Hoops HQ. Janai talked about how he's been overlooked his whole life, obviously starting at Morehead State. What has that done for him as a player? And when you recruit, how much do you value guys who've been overlooked? And if so, why? Well,
I think valuing guys that have been overlooked, and then you bring them into a place like Auburn where, like, here's the deal. I spoil my kids, but I will slap the rotten right out of them. I spoil my players, but I will slap the rotten right out of them. And when you get a guy that's been overlooked and you spoil him, somehow he is more appreciative. He's more grateful for the opportunity. And then he goes to work every single day trying to prove people wrong. And even all season long, when we've been ranked and we've been good and whatever, I have not allowed people to play the favorite card. You know, we are still, of all the teams that are here, you know, Houston has got history and tradition of winning Final Fours and being here before. And Billy Donovan won some with Florida. Now Todd's got him back, and Duke speaks for itself. This is. I don't want to say this is our one shining moment because we've had a couple, but this is rare. We are still going to play that undercard card, and we still got 2 more opportunities hopefully to prove that we're a great basketball team.
Coach, back in the room on the right, CL.
C.L. Brown with the Louisville Courier-Journal. Kind of piggybacking off of that, Bruce, and I'm going to ask you to speculate a little bit, but would Ncaa have been the same player if he would have started at an Auburn, if he would have started in a power conference, or did he kind of need that experience at Moorhead to fuel what he has become?
We certainly benefited from the experience at Moorhead. There's no question. And answer to your question, because I know what kind of a competitor he is, regardless of where he started, he would have done what he's doing right now, because he is a great competitor. He's got a combination of an inner confidence and a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. So I think the biggest thing is he's always been second guessed, whether it was out of high school, even in the OVC, coming to Auburn, he wasn't fast enough, quick enough, didn't jump high enough. The game wouldn't translate his lack of athleticism. They're wrong. And I think the same thing's going to be true when it comes to the NBA. There'll be a lot of clubs that won't draft him because he's just not the prototypical jumper. I know a lot of great jumpers that are bad athletes. Ncaa Broome is a great athlete that doesn't jump very high.
To the left of the aisle, in the back of the room. To your right, gentleman with the green polo.
Bruce, Brian Stahls, Auburn Rivals. I spoke with your former manager, Michael Poe, last night. Can you quickly tell about that friendship and that relationship you have with him during your time at Milwaukee?
Yeah, Michael was working in the cafeteria at UW Milwaukee, bussing tables. And he was working in a job because he had some challenges, and I remember when I would walk into the cafeteria, Michael's personality just boom, it just exploded, and I can remember so many times that the manager of the cafeteria would get upset with Michael because his job wasn't to have big personality and to meet and greet and to make everybody else's day and make everybody feel welcome and serve. His job was to clean up tables. And so he was in the wrong job. So as a coach, my job is to put my players in positions to be successful. I said, this is not his strength. And so I met his family, I met his parents, and I said, don't get me wrong, your son is incredibly talented. I want him to come over to the athletic department, over to the Klachi Center, and I want him to help be like our team manager and help our equipment guy and help our weight room guy and be a greeter and help us in recruiting. And I don't know, 2005, I guess 20 years later, he's still at UW Milwaukee, and he's way more famous than me. Like, they'll never name anything for me at UWM. He's been there 20 years. They should name the court after him. Michael Paul, one of my managers.
The Auburn breakouts have now concluded. The locker room is open, and we're joined for the first time in the big interview room by Dylan Cardwell. We're going to move into the question and answer period for the journalists in the Full Court Press program. You're wearing a black lanyard and a day pass today. You have a question for Dylan Cardwell or for Coach Pearl. Now's your time to raise your hand. Send a microphone in your direction, and we'll get things rolling on the left side up front.
Coach, Brian McQuillan, Full Court Press. Tahad Pettiford's come off the bench throughout the tournament, scoring double digits in each game. Can you just talk about how he's embraced that role and how he impresses you as a freshman, how he continues to just make the mark the second he steps on the court?
Yep. Well, two things. Number one, he was raised right in the sense that he's good enough to start, but not one time did we ever see a roll of the eye or a hunch of the shoulder, because if he did, his dad would slap that right out of him, like for real. In the sense that it's our job as coaches to try to place the players where we feel like we have a chance to be successful. And so he respected the coaching and the decisions that were being made. At the same time, he respected the guys that were starting. He respected Denver and Chad and Miles Kelly and the guys that were starting ahead of him as seniors and guys. At the same time now, he would not be very happy if he wasn't finishing games. And he's been a phenomenal finisher, especially, for a freshman. We put him in huge pressure situations, put the ball in his hands, and trust that he can make a play. And so he's been a joy to coach. He wants to get better. I think being 5'11" and being the underdog and having a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, even though he's from Jersey and he's got that inner confidence, he still goes out every day to try to prove people that maybe he was ranked a little higher than 25th or 30th best high school player in the country. There aren't 20 high school kids playing college basketball right now better than Todd Pettiford. There probably aren't even 5 high school players, 5 better freshmen in the country.
Dylan and Coach, we're in that same area of the room, up front on the left.
Coach Terrell Thompson, Full Court Press. What things have you seen from your team, growth-wise, from the previous matchup against Florida that can lead to a victory tomorrow night?
Well, I don't know if at that point of the season, for some reason, we had a little bit of fatigue. Florida came in and played great, and they're playing better now. And prior to the Florida game and since, I've been saying that I think they've been the best team in college basketball. That's not a knock on my team. It's not a knock on Houston or Duke. It's just how I evaluate their depth, the quality of their guard play. Clayton's been the best guard on the floor every single night. So we're going to have to – Clayton can't be the best guard on the floor tomorrow. Okay, their front line can't be the more aggressive and the more physical tomorrow. If they are, we lose. If they're not, we win.
Midway up the aisle, just to the right.
Hi there, Coach. Evan Veith, Full Court Press. Of course.
Hey, guys, by the way, guys, you are missing the best interview here. This guy here is the best. You can get me anytime. I'm going to answer your question. You guys need to ask. This is the best interview in the country. Go ahead. I'm sorry, sir.
And that was an artsy black and white photo that he took of himself and Coach before, too. Just want everybody to know. Sorry to give away your secrets, Dylan.
Obviously, you and Coach Golden go way back, and there's always that idea that when you're a young player, you learn a lot from your coach, and then him transitioning into the coaching role probably took a lot from you. But since he's turned into a coach at Florida and you've played against him a lot and talked with him, of course, behind the scenes, what have you learned as a basketball coach, and how have you become a better coach by competing against him and working side by side with him?
Well, I think, first of all, Todd had a great mind. And keep this in mind. When you are getting ready to start a new job and you choose the men or women that you want to surround yourself with, I chose my son, Steven. And I chose Todd Golden to be on my first staff to help me get things started at Auburn. So obviously it says everything about his character, about his work ethic, about his intellect, so on and so forth. The other thing, too, is Todd's his own man. Like when he first started coaching, he didn't do a lot of things that we did on the floor because his foundation was Randy Bennett, Coach Smith, other coaches that he had been around. But I'm sure he took notice of how we had to build the staff or how we treated the players or how we got people to play hard, obviously how we worked. What I've learned from Todd is to pay attention to the analytics, to pay attention to what the numbers said. And Mike Burgermeister, who's my offensive coordinator, Stephen Pearl's my defensive coordinator, pay very close attention to the analytics, and I'm sure they share that with something they got from working with Todd.
We have 5 full court questions in the queue right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Anybody for Dylan? Let's come up front. Front right microphone, Aaron.
Hi, Dylan. After you fouled out in the Alabama game, you went straight to the bench and prayed. Coach Pearl has been very vocal about his Jewish faith. I'd love to know what role does faith play, even when practiced differently, into the success of this Auburn team?
Yeah, first and foremost, all glory to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Though, Christian Judaism, might have our differences, we believe in the same God. And it's just been great to see and encouraging to see that I am under a coach who just is so vocal about his own faith, but allows us to pursue our own, and he encourages us to be vocal about it. The role faith plays on this team is the biggest role possible. We wouldn't be here without it. It's a huge catalyst for us. Look at all the games we've been in. We've been in 10 or 10 to 11, one possession games, and we've only lost one of them. And I guess it was the Alabama game at home, which kind of sucked to go through. But it's just encouraging to see. Like I said, we've been where we're at. But we wouldn't be as humble as we are. We wouldn't be as connected as we are without faith. And I'll give you an example. Continue to talk about Bruce Pearl. He encouraged us to have these breakfasts, but also he encouraged us to have Bible study. I've never seen a coach like him to encourage these things. Without these Bible studies, we wouldn't be able to connect with each other in a deeper level outside of basketball. And the word of our year has been sacrifice. And you don't know sacrifice if you don't know Jesus Christ. He's the one who died for all of our sins. And that's kind of been the reason that we've had this level of urgency lately, is because we understand that our sacrifice, on the other side of our sacrifice, is the potential to play for a national championship and win a national championship, not just for our own glory, not just for the glory of ourselves, but for the glory of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. But I also win a national championship for this university and also for Bruce Pearl. I've been here for 5 years, and he has showed me the ropes to be a great Auburn man. And every time I'm praying, I'm always praying for a national championship to win it for Bruce Pearl because he earned it and he has deserved it. And so I'm grateful to be on the stage. I'm grateful to play for and serve a coach like Bruce Pearl, and I'm grateful that God has led me to Auburn. That's why I've stayed here for 5 years because I love God, I love Auburn, and not most importantly, but importantly, I do love Bruce Pearl.
Second row, center.
Hi, Coach. Patrick Walsh, Full Court Press. You've been here before. Kind of take me through what you learned from 2019's experience and what's one major lesson that you can apply to this year to get you over the hump.
Well, that I like being in the warm weather of San Antonio versus the freezing cold of Minneapolis. So that's one thing I've learned. The incredible number of obligations prior to the game with the media and things like that. One of the things that we went through yesterday in practice was we had put in a couple of looks that we hadn't run for a while, and it was amazing how everybody forgot them yesterday. And the reason is they got a lot going on. Like their minds are going, the social media is going, the obligations that we have, the gifts, we got a game. And we got to lock in and focus. And having been there before, it was so good to go through a few things yesterday and watch them forget everything. And I went, oh my gosh, it was good. Because now I think today they're going to be more locked in and just be ready to try to play this basketball game. We recognize that we got to have some special tomorrow. We talk about that a lot. We got to have some special tomorrow if you're going to win. Especially with the field right now is. These are the best 4 teams in college basketball. I don't care who your 5th team is. I don't care. They don't belong here. These 4 teams have earned it all year long. It's not a knock on anybody else, but it's a compliment to all these teams, all these coaches, all these programs.
2 questions up front on the right side.
Hi, guys. Ryan Hopper, Full Court Press. This could be for either one of y'all. With the nature of the NCAA tournament, single elimination, you've been here, Dylan, for 5 years. Coach, you've been here 11 years. Take us through coaching or playing in March Madness and how it could all be over within 40 minutes of basketball.
We'll ask Dylan to take that first.
Yeah. I think our coaching staff does a great job of scouting and having us ready, but at the end of the day, we can't control if our shots go in. We can't control what the other team does, but we can control, like Bruce Pearl always talks about, is our effort and our energy and making sure that we have the most effort on the court and being relentless. And that's kind of been the MO of our past 4 games, is just being relentless. We don't really go into games saying, hey, this is an elimination game. You can't win a game like that. What we do is we segment our games. We just try to be present, be where our feet are, and just like I said, just focus on the game, things that we can control. Like I said, we can't control what a ref calls, but just making sure we're primed to play and ready to play. It's no different than in this regular season. We've had the craziest non-conference, I think, or just craziest schedule in scheduling history, and we have been primed for this position. We're primed for the opportunity that's in front of us, and it's no different than any other game we played. We don't address the elephant in the room as far as, hey, this is an elimination game. I feel like every game that we played has been an elimination game. We played in Maui. We played at Houston. Every game we played at Duke. We played Alabama. We played all these crazy quad 1 games. Every game that we played, it was a must-win game for us, and this is just no different.
Anything to add, Coach?
I think the one thing you do is you give the guys a game plan saying, if we do these things, we will win. If we do these things. Now, not that doing these things are going to be easy, but I want the guys to feel like they're in control of their destiny. I don't want them worrying about if we don't necessarily do this, it's over, we won't play again. I think where Dylan's compartmentalized it and really well, he goes, you know what? I like free breakfast. And quite frankly, I'm not done having free breakfast. Are you? Because you know what? If we lose tomorrow, breakfast isn't free anymore. Yeah. And you know what? It is humorous, but it's real. And our guys, kind of have bought into that. They like free breakfast too.
Dylan, do you have a specific comment on the breakfast?
Oh, no, I think, I want to give a shout out to Emily Daniels, who is our nutritionist. She does a great job of choosing our team breakfasts, and every hotel we stayed at has been for first class, 5-star meals. So shout out breakfast.
Same area of the room up front on the right.
Dylan, the way you carry your faith is admirable. How is that something you've been able to be so open about during your time at Auburn?
Yeah, the Lord is very man. He's very hands on in how he authors your life. There's a verse in Jeremiah that says, "Before you were created in your mother's womb, before you were formed, I knew you." And another verse in Jeremiah 29:11 says, "I know the plans I have for you, plans of prosper, not to harm you, plans to give you hope in the future." As much as my journey's been as up and down at Auburn, and it's frustrating. There was a time in my life where I questioned God on why He brought Bruce Pearl into my life, and it's just been so crazy to be patient and to see that Bruce Pearl is the most significant coach I'll probably ever play for. And like I said, he's given me an example of how to carry myself. And we never really had these conversations. We had a heart-to-heart last year that helped us become friends. But, I want to give him his flowers now. I can still smell them. He showed me the ropes to be an Auburn man, but he's also shown me that it's okay and it's also admirable to be as open as you are about your faith. As you can see, he's very open about his faith and also about the hostage situation going on in Israel. And I've just followed his example, of everything everything that I feel and I have the heart for, the Lord's put in my heart. I'm open about it. I'm very open about the Lord. I'm very open about, my family. But if it wasn't for the Lord giving me Bruce Pearl as an example, I'd just play like every other player in the country, just playing basketball and only being an athlete. So, shout out BP again.
I'm just going to follow up with one thought. I don't know exactly where I learned this along the way. I think my wife Brandy helped me understand this, but one of the biggest ways you can hurt somebody's feelings, not be mad at them, not be jealous of them, not be envious of them, not even be angry with them, to ignore them. To ignore them. I don't want my players to ignore their Father God. I don't. I want them to visit with Him. I want them to be open to Him because He wants to be a part of their life. He wants to be a part of the solution, not part of the problem. And I remember growing up Jewish, and there were a lot of things that we would do in prayer that were, holy. The Bema was holy. The Torah scrolls were placed in a very holy place. We would put a prayer shawl on. We'd cover our head. And it wasn't the Holy of Holies, but it was very significant. And so I grew up kind of thinking, man, God's awfully busy. I just think I don't want to bother Him. And then Brandy had said to me, she said, let me ask you a question. She said, if there was something that your father could do for you, but you didn't want to ask Him because you thought He was too busy. And I'm talking about my dad. Don't you think that would really upset? Why didn't you come to me? Why didn't you ask me? And that's what the Lord is. He just wants you to come to Him. He wants you to ask Him. He wants you to visit with Him. And that's what I've tried to, instill in the players. And then to have the courage of sharing their faith and also the respecting of other faiths. That necessarily this not being the only way. And that's what we have. That's what we try to deal with.
We want to thank Dylan Cardwell for joining us here in the main interview room. And Coach Pearl is going to take a short 30 down at the bottom of the dais, and we're going to reset for the AP Coach of the Year news conference.
Oregon, God bless.
Auburn's on the court for open practice at noon. We're going to begin our AP Coach of the Year news conference in just a moment. Just to run through the schedule real quick, we're going to have our AP Coach of the Year news conference, 2 Associated Press Coaches of the Year. Both are going to join us up here on the dais, as well as Barry Bedlin from the Associated Press. Auburn, as I mentioned, is headed to the court at noon for open practice. Also at noon, we'll have breakouts for the student athletes from Houston, and the locker room will open for Houston as well. At 12:15, head coach Kelvin Sampson will join us here in the main interview room. But right now, we're about to be set to welcome our distinguished guests for the Associated Press Coach of the Year news conference. That means we're supposed to begin. Morning, Coach. Good, how are you? I'd like to introduce at this time from the Associated Press, Barry Bedlin.
I'm Barry Bedlin, Sports Products Director for the Associated Press. It is my honor to present the AP Men's College Basketball Coach of the Year Award to not one but 2 of the game's top coaches. Before we begin, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention how special today would have been to Jim O'Connell, AP's Hall of Fame basketball writer, who passed away months after the last Final Four was played here in San Antonio 7 years ago. Ock was the utmost professional, not allowing bias to appear in his coverage, but he made it no secret off the clock that he bled St. John's red. Knowing that the coach of his team is receiving some AP hardware today would have made it hard for Ock to not smile big if he were here. The AP Coach of the Year Award is selected by the same panel of journalists that decides the AP Weekly Top 25. Voting is conducted at the end of the season before the start of the NCAA tournament. The award has been around for 58 years, and this is the first time voting has finished in a tie. So today we get to recognize 2 deserving coaches for their exceptional seasons. Their names will now join a list that includes the likes of John Wooden, Roy Williams, Eddie Sutton, Tom Izzo, and last year's recipient, Kelvin Sampson. Both of this year's award winners were named their respective conferences Coach of the Year. Both have established winning programs after years of those programs struggling prior to their arrivals. One led his team to his 3rd regular season championship in the dominant Southeastern Conference. He also led his Tigers to both a school record and a career high 32 wins this season. Auburn also earned the number 1 overall seed in this year's NCAA tournament. The other coach, who was in the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame, proved he still has the touch. In only his 2nd season at St. John's, he led his program to its first outright Big East regular season title in 40 years and first Big East tournament championship in 25. His team's 4 regular season losses were only by a combined 7 points. Interestingly, both of this year's recipients started their college basketball journeys in Massachusetts. One is a point guard for UMass Amherst. The other is the student manager for Boston College. They also have played each other twice, with the one who coached at Louisville winning both, including in the 2008 Sweet 16. It is my honor to present this year's AP Men's College Basketball Coach of the Year trophy to both Rick Pitino and Bruce Pearl. And so what we're going to do here is the obligatory grip and grin for the photographers. With each one, Coach Pitino, will start with you, and then we'll get a shot of both of you standing with the trophies. So.
Photos are welcome, and I do believe that you can roll video in this news conference as well. So feel free to use your cell phone.
I think that's enough time. There you go, Coach. Thank you. You bet. All right, and then what we'd like to do is have both of you, because I know Coach Pearl's going to have to head out early. We'll have both of you pose for a shot. with the trophies. So what we'll do now is we'll have each coach, I'll give each coach the opportunity to make a few comments. Coach Pitino, we'll start with you.
Well, thank you for this prestigious award, and I'm very, very excited that I get to share it with Bruce. I've admired him since he's been a young coach, admired him as a middle-aged coach, and now I admire him as an older coach. I'm a lot younger than him, and so Bruce has been one of my favorites in coaching for a long, long time. He wins every place he's been, but he wins with his players having fun, with a great style of play. He's just terrific, and I just admire him so much since he's been young to now where he's coaching. And good luck in the Final Four. What a incredible season. So I'm just deeply honored. Thank the AP, and sharing it with someone like Bruce is just a special treat.
Well, thank you, Coach. I've said this many times. The best coach I've ever gone up against was Rick Pitino. I remember being a manager at Boston College, and this young Italian kid would be sneaking into practice or coming watching Dr. Tom Davis's games, even when they weren't on the schedule, because he was a sponge. I didn't know then that that young coach would become one of the greatest coaches in the history of the game at any level. And I tried to emulate so many things about the way Coach Pitino coached, the way he loved his players, the way he built a staff, the way he won everywhere he had been, always giving his opponents, credit, respecting, honoring, the game. And while this is an incredible award, and I accept it on behalf of a great coaching staff, because Coach, we wouldn't be here without the men and the women that we have surrounding us. To have earned Coach Pitino's respect would be one of my greatest achievements as a basketball coach. I mean that with all sincerity.
So what we'll do now is open it up for questions, but Coach Pearl is going to have to run off to practice here in just a few minutes, so we'd ask any questions directed specifically to him. Go to him first.
If you have a question for Coach Pearl, please raise your hand. Let's get one down in the front or use that front left microphone.
Bruce, Robbie LaStella, bracketshere.org. Obviously, you guys are in the midst of a big game tomorrow, but reflecting on this moment for you personally, from where you've been to now, what's this kind of feel like being recognized for your success?
Well, it's an honor, and especially when you look at the people that you share that honor with. It is historic. We do want to try to make history. We want to try to make good history, and so that's why it's so important. But it is a reflection of the incredible hard work and efforts of my staff. You want to judge me? Judge me by the men and the women I surround myself with. Judge me by my staff, and this is ours, without question. So we're humble, we're grateful, and we got 2 more games to win.
Coach Pearl is going to head out to practice after this John Fanta question. Back room, backside on the left.
Bruce, John Fanta, Fox Sports. Both of you this season have given locker room access to cameras. And the energy within those rooms has produced some moments that a lot of people can appreciate. How do you balance the motivation, the pressing, the trying to get the very most that you've gotten out of this team with that love that you give to your group as well?
Well, I'd like to think that I was all access before all access, right? We're coaches, we're teachers, we're ministers, we're pouring into our kids. And so to allow people to come in and listen to our messaging, Coach Pitino gave his young men about tough love, about accountability, about growing up. These are real life lessons. Yes, they're going to have a lot to do with the next 20 minutes about whether or not he was able to win that basketball game, but it's going to carry on to that and those life lessons. So, we don't mind letting people in. We don't ask that you agree with everything that we have to say or or the way we even say it. But, Coach Pat Dye has said this: you can coach him as hard as you love him. Why is it that somehow your father or an uncle or a grandfather could say something to you that nobody else could say to you? And the reason why that's the case is because you know how much he loves you and cares about you. And so we can talk to our players. We can tell our players what we think. It doesn't make us always right, but it's going to be authentic, it's going to be real, and that's how you develop that trust. Coach Pitino's players trust him. They know he cares about them, and they trust his experience, and so that's why I'm grateful to be able to listen and learn. Last thing I want to say is, when I was a young Division II assistant coach, Bobby Knight's radio show was on before my radio show, and I drive from practice to try to get to my radio show, and I listen to him. Bobby Knight did not exactly respect the media like he should have, but he respected his fans. I listened to his radio show, and I learned about how to be a better teacher and how to be a better coach. And so that's why we open up our locker room. So
we want to congratulate Coach Pearl and thank him for joining us here in the main interview room.
Okay, you gotta take your.
Yep, I'll get it to you.
Coach Pearl and Auburn are headed to open practice out on the deck. We'll take questions for Coach Pitino. We have one in the back on the right side of the room. Dan.
Rick, hey, Dan Wolken, USA Today. If you don't mind entertaining a question about the landscape of college sports and everything that's going on right now. Obviously, this revenue share cap coming in. What do you think is going to make this thing fail or work? Is it going to be the commitment of people to hold to it, or do you see, some outside forces here that, that are going to screw with this thing that they want to put in?
I'm not often critical because I adapt to everything. I said, if these are the rules, let's try and get the most out of the rules that we play by. The only thing I'm very concerned about for young athletes today is some of the athletes and what they're being paid, this will be the most they'll ever make in their life. And that's not something I believe in. I believe you go out, you prove yourself, you make a little bit more, whether you graduate from Notre Dame and you go to Wall Street and you're working for $18,000 and you make a little bit more, then you're running the company 15 years later. And it bothers me a little bit that the money has gotten such that a young athlete's going to be making the most he'll ever make in his life as a young person. So that's the only thing I look at. Everything else, I'll see where the chips fall where they may and then try to figure it out.
Next question up front on the left. Hoops is in the house.
Hey, Coach, how are you? Coach, when you were younger, you were one of the best recruiters that I had seen in the country. Everything's changed now. What do you suggest to high school seniors now who know they might not be recruited either at their level or recruited at all?
Yeah, but a year ago we recruited 3 freshmen, and this year we're not recruiting any. Just because we're losing 3 great players. I'm smart enough to know coaches never win awards. Players win the awards for coaches along with their staff. So I know why I'm up here today. It's because of the hard work that my guys put in. But I will say it's a lot easier teaching older players than it is younger players. But the shame of it all, and I don't understand this, I coached in the EuroLeague for 2 years. They wanted no part of college guys, even if they spent 4 years. They only want like 26, 27, or guys in the G League that have been there for 3 or 4 years, or NBA guys when they retired. They did not want young players, where the NBA wants all young guys. If you look at the draft this year, freshman, sophomore, freshman, foreign. And it's coaches. When I coached in the NBA, we wanted no part of young players. We wanted guys that were older. So the general managers want younger players because they have a built-in excuse if they don't perform. Oh, they're too young. They'll come on. It saves their job for another year or 2.
We'll go to Zach, then Adam, then Chris.
How do you know all these guys' names?
Been doing this a while, Coach. And I'm from New York.
Zach Brazil, New York Post. What's up, Ray? Congrats.
Thanks, Zach.
You've never won this award before. So it's a 2-part question. What does it mean to you to win this award? And number 2, does winning an award, does that motivate you in terms of to continue to do what you're doing?
Well, it's funny because I said to my wife, this is the second time I've won this award. And she said, no, you won the Wooden Award right away. I said, oh. I said, never won it? She said, no. I said, that's awesome.
First St. John's coach.
I didn't know that I beat Bruce Pearl twice until he told me. I said, when was that? And Kenny Klein, who drinks a lot, he did not remember it either. And if he didn't remember it, how was I going to remember? Now, it is a special treat because all these awards, I have my assistant here, Ricky Johns, and my other assistant, Stephen Boateng, and my AD is here. We share this. We know why we win these type of awards. It's dedicated players having a great season and dedicated staffs and everybody coming together, and I certainly share with that. But I'm excited to win this and very excited to share it with Bruce because he's having So we were talking earlier on the plane who I thought would win. This is the first time in my 50 years I don't have an opinion who can win this game. I really don't. Now, if Houston wins this game, it's going to be very tough for the opponent that they play with 1 day prep to play against Houston. But Duke has had a week to prepare for Houston, so it's a lot easier. And then in the other game, I believe Florida beat Auburn at Auburn, and it's a revenge game, and I could make a 20-minute dissertation case for every team. So I don't know why they're making Duke the favorite. They're great. Coach Shai has done a magnificent job with that team, but I could not pick the winner of any of these games. It's amazing.
Before we get to Adam, is there a Kenny Klein rebuttal? We can send a microphone. Kenny. Adam.
Rick, Adam Zagoria, congratulations.
Thank you.
You obviously got some nice portal additions with Bryce and Josan. Can you just talk briefly about how you feel that's improved your roster overall, and also does being here at the Final Four motivate you even more to try to get back here next year or in the future?
Well, I did my best this year. I don't know if I could try any harder. Look, I've said this all along. I've lost in the first round to Morehead State and been blessed enough to go to 7 Final Fours. It's all matchups sometimes. We got a bad matchup with Arkansas with their athleticism, but we don't make any excuses. Arkansas deserved all the credit. But we had 2 guys with torn ligaments in their thumbs that played. We improved our defense. We wanted to improve our defense and get better quickness, better athletes. We did that. Now we got to take it to the next step. We got to keep on recruiting great athletes that shoot it better. We've got to improve our shooting from the outside. It was not good either from the foul line or the perimeter. And we're going to improve that, certainly. That's what we're looking at right now.
Next on the right side, Chris.
Hey, Rick. Chris Harry from FloridaGators.com. Can you recount the video you saw, your assistant showed you, of Walt during his tryout? I guess it was in Orlando or something like. At least that's how it was relayed to me. And and also when he played for you, did he have the freedom to play the way he did, take some of the shots he did when he played for you?
Well, Walt, as you know, was a football player and had major scholarships to high-level schools. I believe Florida State, Notre Dame, and one other SEC school. And we looked at the film. What I like, he won a high school championship. May have been back-to-back high school championships, yes. And I wanted a winner at Iona, and he was a winner. Even though he's a football player, I liked the way he passed the ball. I liked what he was doing. And when he first came in, he struggled a little bit like all freshmen do, and then he became the MVP of the league his sophomore year, was a killer basketball player, as he is now for Florida. And I had one of the best backcourts. We actually were one of the few teams that was close to Connecticut at halftime. I believe, it's going to sound crazy, that Iona was a Sweet 16 team because we had one of the best backcourts and we had Nelly Joseph Jr. at center. Unfortunately, our matchup was the champions. But I had a great team for Iona, and it could have gone far, I thought, that year. And Walter Clayton, it did not surprise me that he's having the success he's having now. And I think Walt's going to be a great pro. He plays hurt. He plays all the time. He's a tough kid. He makes shots. He's a great passer. He lets the game come to him. He has quick hands. He jumps much better than people. His vertical's much better than people would ever see. And it was a treat coaching Walt. Great guy.
Back of the room on the right, Eric.
Eric Prisbell, Hoops HQ. Rick, you've seen a lot of great freshmen over the years. How would you assess where Cooper Flagg ranks among the great freshmen, specifically among those during the one-and-done era?
Yeah, he's really special, and he really shouldn't be a freshman in college. He should be a high school senior, which is even more impressive. He's as good as I've seen in quite some time. There's been a lot of great ones. I'd certainly put him up with some of the best. And he's going to have a great pro career. What Duke is doing is kind of amazing to me. It's very difficult to win with freshmen, very difficult. But they're doing it. They're very well coached. They're very well drilled. And now they're going to see a defensive team that's really, really difficult to go against. So I'm really looking forward to it because they're terrific on offense. They play good defense, and they're going against one of the best defensive teams that you'll ever see. So it's going to be an exciting matchup, but Cooper Flagg is tremendous, going to have a great pro career as well.
Coach, Louisville media in the building here, CL.
Okay.
How you doing, Rick? CL
Good seeing you.
Good to see you. Certainly, you've made a living adapting to the different changes throughout college basketball. But with how the landscape is right now, what has been kind of the biggest challenge that you feel like you've had to confront when so many of your other peers have decided that they were good, they didn't want to continue to kind of make those changes?
Well, probably nothing has surprised me until just this year when you can't believe the numbers. Now, I do know some of the numbers are true, and it blows me away with those numbers. And I don't know how some of the coaches are using their mathematics skill to put together 13 players with those numbers. But I'm happy for the players, certainly. Appreciate it. But I'm waiting to see what's going to happen in the next week to see where this goes. And then we'll adapt once again. But the toughest thing is the new rosters that you have to put together every year. And my biggest pet peeve with the NCAA, I don't know what they're doing with some of the thinking. We had to have somebody who came out publicly and say he was starving at night to get them to change the rules about a refueling station. And I think it was Napier from Connecticut that came, was it him? I think it was him that came out with that. And then all the food rules changed. And the fact that we're only getting 4 hours a week with all these new teams in the summertime when coaching professional athletes is the most backward thing I've ever heard of in my life. They are professional athletes. Let them train like Kobe did, like Michael did, like LeBron does, and let them train in the summertime to hone their skills so they can become great players. Don't tell us there's nothing going on that they only get 4 hours a week. Please come into the 2025 NCAA and don't give us 4 hours a week.
Backside of the room on the left, Rick.
Yeah, Rick, John Clay, Herald Leader in Lexington. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I know you obviously were very busy with your team, but I was just wondering, did you get much chance to follow one of your proteges there, Mark Pope at Kentucky, and what kind of year did you think he had in his first year?
I always follow the guys I coach, and I followed them religiously this year, rooting for them all the time. Mark did a fabulous job this year, playing a very difficult schedule. I love the way his guys play. I love the offenses he runs. I love the way they move the ball. They share the basketball. I knew he'd be a great coach. There was no doubt in my mind. But I didn't know it from BYU. I went to see him at the Utah Valley program and watched him build that. And that's where I knew Mark. You never know when your players are going to be great coaches or not. But I went to see Mark, and at that point I knew he'd be a great coach. Kentucky hired the right man. Mark will be brilliant for so many years. Such a humble person, such a caring person, and such a great offensive mind. So yes, I followed him all the time religiously.
Want to congratulate and thank Coach Pitino, Associated Press National Coach of the Year. Lapchick, Carnesecca, first St. John's coach to win the AP Coach of the Year.
Wow, thank you.
We'll be joined by Kelvin Sampson in just a moment. This reminder that the Houston locker room is open and the student-athlete breakout rooms are open as well. Eddie Cull in the building. Yeah, smooth though. I like this.